are you planning on doing the Gibb River Road this year or maybe even next year? Then you're going to want to watch this whole video. Plus, make sure you subscribe. I think if you don't subscribe, it's like 99 years bad luck or something, so I don't make the rules. So I'm sure if you're planning to do the Gibb River Road, you've done a bit of research, and we thought we'd just add in, or me, because Megan's not here at the moment, to add in a few of our tips, things we experienced and things that we think might make your trip a little bit easier. So yeah, let's get into it. So road conditions, that's obviously a big one, and that's something that people umming and ahhing about, and how they don't know what it's going to be like. The main thing to understand is it changes year on year. With the wet season in between each tourist season, road conditions change. Whether it's been graded or not, it changes. So the thing to do is really just prepare for all scenarios. The main thing would be to take 2 spare tires. A lot of people run with 1, some go with 3. I think 2 is a good medium. You could probably do with 1, but it's one of those things where it's just in case, and it's probably worth having because of where you are, the remoteness, and the limited resources out there. The other thing is to air down your tires. As a lot of people know, the corrugation is really bad in some spots. Sometimes it's really smooth, sometimes it's shocking. So to air down your tires not only makes a comfier ride for you, but it damages the road less and it damages your car less. So overall, it's definitely a thing you should be doing. Therefore, definitely take a tire inflator and a pump. So when you get to the end of it or a bit of bitumen, you can pump up your tires and you're back on a comfy road. The other thing about the road conditions is corrugation is one thing, but then potholes, washouts, divots is another big thing. And a lot of the time what we found is that when you're driving along, no matter how fast you're going, if you hit one of those washouts, it hits it hard. They come up out of nowhere regardless of your speed, because when the shadows are coming across the road, you can't really see what a washout is, and then just bang. So definitely watch out for them, be aware, and the edges of the roads can easily be washed out from any type of rain. So definitely be cautious of washouts. If you're planning on going up to Mitchell Falls, it's a slow going track. We actually found it better than what we were expecting. It's definitely slow going, single lane. We were lucky enough to have a grader going ahead of us, but it still is a slow going track. So be aware of that. Most people, or I think everyone, wouldn't take caravans any further than maybe the King Edward River Crossing campground. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Speed is another big one. Everyone differs on whether they should go faster or slower. We found that there was a nice medium between fast and slow in regards to how our tires and our car felt. Obviously every car weighs differently, the different tire pressures. I think we ran around 20 PSI, which you could potentially go lower depending on the conditions. So it's mainly, if it feels comfortable, it's good, but if you're going too fast, you've got to be really cautious. We did come across a couple of accidents in our 2 weeks on the Gibb River Road. They happen so regularly, and it's just purely because of speed and road conditions. The other thing is other cars. So the dust it creates from other cars, trucks, caravans, whatever, is insane. And you've got to be really cautious of when you're passing a car, not to flick up rocks and dust, because that's just going to impede their vision. But also road trains pass you. So when a road train or another car or something is passing you, it's so important to really slow down, pull as far left as you can, because you really hope that no one's overtaking that caravan or that truck at that moment. Camping, to be honest, the Gibb River Road camping was some of the best we've ever done on our whole travels around Australia. The free camping, there's lots of different options, but also in the gorges, in the national parks and on the stations, it's some of the best. The good thing is that it's such a big area, so a lot of it's really spread out. So some of our favorites were Winjana, was just simply because it was right there. You don't really have many other options in that area, but it was a very large campground. It was very dusty, so keep that in mind. I'm not 100% sure if that's open this year, but I'm pretty sure it is. From there, we stayed at Marchfly Glen, which is a great little free camp. Not a huge area, but if you get in early, you'll probably get a nice spot. From there, we went to Silent Grove, I think. That is, again, quite a large campground. It does get very busy, so getting in early, finding a spot to the side is essential. We stopped at a couple of little rivers on the way. Wiki Camps is your friend. Be aware that some areas you can't camp at, some are day use, some you're allowed to camp at. So it's a lot about finding your own little camps as well. And when you get higher up towards Mitchell Falls, we stayed at King Edward Crossing, which is great. They're like really big campsites, fire pits, and you're really spread out from other people. So it's one of those ones where you kind of feel you're in a campground, but you don't have neighbors close, and that's really cool. You can camp on I think think it's the Gibb River. You can also camp on the Pentecost River, which we did. Obviously, because that's closer to Kununurra, it gets super busy, and it's essential that you kind of get in early. Because there is limited spots, it's not like a campground. It's definitely just a free camping area. So be aware that, yeah, if you've got a big rig, it's also a little bit more difficult. Mitchell Falls, you've got to go to Mitchell Falls. I think we deliberated. We were like, do we go? Do we not go? Because of the road conditions. But to be honest, we didn't find the road conditions from the turn off, like through Drysdale to Mitchell Falls, any worse than the rest of the Gibb. So it's one of those things, probably ask other people. We decided to do it because we had spoken to someone who had just come back. So it makes it a lot easier when you have first-hand information of the road, right?
It's true.
So that was definitely a thing that we are so glad we did, because we visited Drysdale Station, we visited King Edward Crossing, we didn't go to Kununurra. Definitely do your research, ask the Kununurra Visitor Centre or the Broome Visitor Centre if certain roads are open or closed. But yeah, got to go to Mitchell Falls, drove in, we actually did a day trip and then back to King Edward. Then we walked in, walked out. Obviously there's helicopter flights and that, but it's so worth it. The walk, not that hard depending on your ability, but we found it pretty easy. A little bit slow going at times. It's not super short, but it's definitely worth it when you get to see those falls with your own eyes. It's something that shouldn't be missed. And I think you can leave your caravan at Drysdale Station or at King Edward where we camped. So definitely look into that, make that part of your plan. So we did 2 weeks. We could easily have gone slower, and we know a lot of people who have done it relatively quick. People do it in 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, and then some people take a month. It's all up to you and how fast you want to go and what you want to see. There's so many offshoots, there's different gorges, there's different stations, and then once you get to those stations, they've got options to drive to different gorges and stuff. It's easy to do it fast because I guess it's just one road, but we would definitely recommend going at a medium pace. I think you got to really understand that there is limited supplies, so you can't take forever, but a lot of people will be able to go off grid for a long time these days. So visit as many stations as you can. Try and not miss many gorges, because most of them you can swim at and they're pretty epic. The Kimberley is so underrated. So I think that if you were to visit these gorges, you will not be disappointed. Food and water. So we took 2 weeks worth of food and water. We stocked up in Broome and we were heading towards Kununurra. Glad we did. Obviously there's extremely limited supplies. The only place we bought maybe a snack was at Mount Barnett Roadhouse. They do have some groceries there, I think some frozen bread and stuff like that, but you make sure do not rely on that, because obviously for them to get stuff in and out isn't easy. So that is one place you can stock up on, well, not stock up, you can grab some small supplies, and I think you can get water there as well. There is a couple of other little roadhouses along the way, but it's integral to not rely on those things. So we have a freezer and a fridge and we stocked it so we could just have meat in that the whole time, but we also took a lot of cans, a lot of like non-perishable stuff, which we could have towards the end of our trip, meaning that we didn't have to buy stuff along the way, because obviously it is expensive as well. But water you can get, we filled up in, I think, Drysdale on our way to Mitchell Falls, but you can also get that at Mount Barnett. But again, that is purely dependent on the season they're having, the resources they have. So make sure you do your research beforehand. Join Facebook groups, ask certain questions before you go, because things do change year on year. People ask how long they should spend at El Questro, given that there's quite a few things to do there. Remembering El Questro is only, it can be a day trip from Kununurra as well. So if you can't get into El Questro, or you don't want to spend, you need to get to a town, then you can do day trips from Kununurra, absolutely. We stayed at El Questro for 3 nights. It wasn't overly cheap, but it was one of those things where we're right there. We were able to do a walk each day, get up early, go to Zebedee Springs. Then we did Emma Gorge on our way back to Kununurra. Highly recommend a few days there. It's kind of one of those places where if it's at the end of your trip, it's really good to relax, have a beer, have a meal there, and have a shower, and just chill out after you've been driving and been dirty for 2 weeks or so. And then you can go into Kununurra that way. So some of the accessories that we took, and we're really glad we did, was a UHF radio. Really important when you're passing trucks, or trucks are coming towards you, or if there's roadworks, or if there's a grader or other cars. It's just a good way of communicating. A lot of people on channel 40 and 18, a lot of caravans are on 18, so that's just a handy tool to have in your car, because things always come up, random, events are happening on the road, so definitely add that in. Like I said, tire deflator and a pump, really important. You're gonna want to air your tires down. There's no way you can do the Gibb River Road without airing wearing your tires down. So definitely invest in one of them. Tire repair kit is also a big one. Luckily, we didn't have a puncture, but a lot of people do. And if you run out of spares, a tire repair kit's gonna save you. So unless you get a real big damage on the sidewall of your tire, then a tire repair kit's gonna be a saving grace, especially if you run out of those spare tires. I guess if you're taking 2 or 3 spare tires and you go through them all, you're extremely unlucky. Wiki Camps, make sure you download it offline or your Google Maps offline, or save stuff before you go. There is extremely limited reception, and even when there is a bit of reception, like at Mount Barnett Roadhouse, there's so many people, it doesn't really work. So we found that downloading Wiki Camps offline, making sure you've saved certain things, screenshotted certain campsites you want to get to, that kind of stuff, or coordinates, really handy, because yeah, if you're there and you're trying to download stuff, it's too late. Obviously a lot of people have Starlink now, which kind of defeats that purpose of downloading stuff. So if you've got Starlink, you're all sweet. A lot of people ask us whether you need a snorkel to do the Gibb River Road. You don't need a snorkel, but it's definitely one of those things that's recommended. You'd hate to get to a really deep river crossing if they've had like unseasonal rain and you can't get through, or you risk your car. It's definitely possible. We had a snorkel on our car that we went with, and we kind of didn't worry about it. We went through a number of river crossings. Be careful that they rip your number plates off quite easy. So 4 screws in your number plates, definitely. Yeah, it's one of those things where you see a lot of people doing it without it. The other good thing is it's good for your air intake. So having a snorkel, it's so dusty. There's a lot of cars and just dust is everywhere. Everything gets covered in dust, so you're gonna get covered. But a snorkel filter, if you do run a snorkel, is very important. Put it on before you even start. Don't do it halfway through. Before you even start, we did take a spare air filter, which we replaced when we got to Kununurra anyway. But a filter is, or a sock, a lot of people call them socks. You can get them on eBay. Some you put like an oil on and it grabs the dust. Some you don't have to. Some people use like a old stocking, but something that will definitely stop the dust is important. A lot of people you see haven't thought about it, and they've got like cloths and that on there, which may do some good. I don't know. They might not do anything. So definitely something, it's so cheap as well. So invest in that before you go. Grab a couple, put them in your canopy or put them in your car, and then you'll be fine for when you head off. All right, another really important thing, probably one of the most important things, is fuel. And that's probably one of the more common questions you get, is where you can fill up, because not everyone has a long range fuel tank, not everyone carries jerrys. Certainly should carry 1 or 2 jerrys full of fuel. Because there's so many offshoots, you don't know where you're going to be going that day, and you don't know if you're going to go further than you originally planned. So have that fuel kind of just gets you, it can take you a bit further, but also gets you out of trouble if something happens. You get, I don't know, bogged or stuck, or you end up going further. Someone says, let's go to this track, or let's go to this gorge instead. It's just handy to have that, because again, it's so remote, you don't want to get caught with running out of fuel. You can get fuel at a number of different places. I think there's 3 when we did it, but again, that may change. Mount Barnett is usually your most reliable one, which is roughly halfway. Drysdale on the way to Mitchell, where we got a bit of fuel, and then I think there's a couple of others. Prices are irrelevant, really. It's going to be expensive, so plan for an expensive fuel top up, and it's probably worth just topping up, even if you think you'll make it. Just because, like I said, you could decide to get somewhere and then be like, oh, well, let's go a bit further. This camp, a bit further, we spoke to someone and they camped here, and it's another 20 Ks or whatever. It's just better to have fuel not at the forefront of your mind. The other thing we took is spares. We took some spare hoses, some spare belts. And to be honest, these days things are really cheap from like Repco or Super Cheap Auto. You can just put your card in and get the belts and the hoses and that. Some like clamps, things like that. That if you're gonna, I don't know, bust a hose or break a belt in your car, then you can kind of just fix it yourself. At least get yourself out of trouble. Get yourself to Kununurra, back to Broome, to a roadhouse somewhere. That way you're not stranded, because that's where the cost goes up, and that's where a lot of people, I guess, have bad experiences on the Gibb, where they get stuck. So that's just a few tips on our Gibb River Road experience. Like I said, conditions change year on year, things change year on year, so it's best to get your up-to-date information just before you go from the visitor centre or the local shires and things like that. Thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the video, and if you want to know more about our experience on the Gibb River Road, leave a comment below. We'll certainly reply. We've also got a few reels on our Instagram that you should check out, and thanks for watching.